What's happening, everybody? How's it going today? Welcome to Can I Get More Podcasts in my monitor. I am Johnny Ruckus. Today is July 12th, 2020. Seems to be a very nice day out. We're getting a little bit of a reprieve from the ultra hot weather that we had, but you know what? It's farther away from snow, so I'm not going to complain, even though the Midwest thing to do is to complain about the heat in the winter. Heat in the summer and the cold in the winter. I'm going to hold off and try not to do that as much as, I could. Hope everybody's doing well. Coming off of, July 4th and all the stuff, and we're still dealing with all the COVID shit. You know, always good times. Fart noise. UFC 251, there it is, was last night. Great event. There was lots of high-level fights for sure. 3 title fights. The main card was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Got some finishes. High-level fighting, going in all the 5 rounds. Couple questionable judging calls, I would say. Not going to get into it too much here, but I had a great event. It's great to watch sports, period. But, you know, I like the UFC a lot. I like MMA fighting, so it's neat to be able to watch that. And, they take all the proper precautions during this time that they're supposed to and have to and, feel the need to and all that kind of stuff. So it was a great event. Kamaru Usman's a beast. I mean, you kind of figured that fight was going to go that way because that's how his fights go. I'm not going to give out too many spoilers if anybody wants to watch it, but he took it to the hottest fighter going right now, the one that had the most heat behind him and the most appeal right now, the most fame, and took it to him and made him relatively ineffective. This is also a good fight for Jorge Masvidal because he took the fight on 6 days' notice. So he's got nothing. There was a lose or a win-win for him, regardless if he won or lost. Didn't really matter because he had nothing to lose. He only had 6 days' notice. But Usman, he's a destroyer. He just pounds on people for, he'll go the 5 rounds. He doesn't care. He wants to win the fight. He's the champ. It's not super duper exciting, even though, that fight with Colby Covington was super exciting because they just traded the entire time because they really fucking hated each other. But with this, it's a different with everyone. Masvidal is an exciting fighter. He wants to finish people. And Usman is a super high-level wrestler. And, he's very skilled everywhere, really, but he's a high-level wrestler. That's his bread and butter. He put it on him. What are you going to do? Personally, I think, moving on to the next fight, I think Max Holloway got hosed, but Alexander Volkanovski won the championship rounds pretty handily. So it's kind of easy to forget the first couple rounds, but Max put Alex down. The first 2 rounds, he put him down. He got up right away, but either way, he still took him off his feet with strikes. The third round was could have gone either way. I think I gave it to Max. It was like just over half a round. So I mean, it was really tight. It was a great fight. I think Max should have won that decision, but neither one looked they were beat up, but neither one of them looked really worse for wear towards the end, and Alex ended up winning the championship round. So good to him. Man, is that guy tough. He's a great fighter. We've got a new bantamweight champion, Piotr Jan. He put it on Aldo. They probably should have been finished. They probably should have took at least 30 seconds, maybe a minute off that beating. Because I understand it's a championship fight. You want to give Jose Aldo all the chance in the world to come back, but he really wasn't. He was defending himself, but he wasn't fighting back. He wasn't in a position to fight back, so he just took a beating. It was a great fight. They really that Piotr Jan is for real. Jose Aldo keeps being in these fights. I mean, he's fighting top competition. So he's in these fights where maybe 5-6 years ago he probably would have won those fights. Now he's just competitive in them. He's still a very great fighter. Very great. Very good fighter. He's a great fighter. He's one of the best ever. Rose came back and beat the woman who beat her for the title. So in pretty handed fashion, it was a split decision. One of the judges gave it to Jessica Andrade, but she was super tough. She took a lot of shots. I mean, so did Rose, but I didn't. I had Rose 2-1. I think the third round, Jessica Andrade won, just for the fact that she knew she was down 2-0. So she had to try to get a finish to win the fight, and she took it to Rose. But Rose withstood the barrage, if you will, and I thought she pretty much cruised to a victory. I really did. I thought she did exactly what she was supposed to do. Rose Namajunas is a great fighter. It seems that her passion for the sport is now back. After taking that long layoff, after getting finished by Jessica Andrade last time, she dumped her on her head. She seems like she's back. I don't know if she's going to get the title fight next against Zhang Weili or not. I don't know if there's one more fight that needs to happen, but I don't know who the challenger is for Zhang Weili. So it might be Rose. That would be a hell of a fight. That woman hits like a tank. Paige Van Zandt got finished. This was her final deal on her contract. She wanted to go out a winner, so her stock is super high. Totally get it. Didn't happen that way. Amanda Hebus is she's a destroyer too. She's a tough woman, and she's going to be a problem. Was that flyweight, I think? I don't know if she, right now, I don't think she's on Valentina Shevchenko's level. There isn't a whole lot of challengers for her. So maybe she's the next in line. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that was at flyweight. Yeah, that was at flyweight. So I didn't get to watch really much of the prelims at all. I know I watched a little bit, but I don't. Oh, I can't remember his name. The one that was the main event in the prelim. He was impressive. I know they were touting him quite a bit. I'm not really familiar with him, but he's got a lot of fights under his belt, professional MMA fights before he came into the UFC. And he looked it didn't look like he took Ozdemir. I think that's how you say his name. Seriously, kind of, but he got touched up a couple times. But he's a hands down kind of fighter. I don't know. Those the light heavyweights, they can crack, so that might not be the greatest thing, but hey, I don't fight. I just like watching it. I don't fight. Which is good. You don't need to see my tubby ass fighting anybody. Plus, you got to be a different breed of cat to do that for sure. I'll just talk about music and make funny noises and voices and stuff. I want to talk about there was a couple albums that came out actually 25 years ago, really in close succession or whatever. Actually, yesterday was the 25th anniversary of the Self Titled 311 album, the one that kind of made them, made them stars, got them noticed. They had two albums before that. This was their third album. Boy, back in the day when you could release a couple albums that didn't do great on the chance that you might. Now it's just like it's one and done. If you don't do good on your first one, you're done. But you could develop back in the day, in a better time. That one came out yesterday, 25th anniversary, and it was also my nephew's graduation party yesterday, so I didn't get to do as much prep on the show, which is fine because we all needed. I don't get to see my family too often. More just, we're off doing our own lives. It's not that we live that far away from each other, but we all have our own stuff going on, and with the COVID shit, for a while, it was looked down upon to stop in, wherever. But I need to do better than that. So they said they actually listened to the show. So I don't know if they're listening right now, but it was great seeing everybody. It was just good for the soul. We were there for a purpose, but it was just good to just kind of sit around and just be together and, eat food and just kind of talk shit and just have fun. It was really needed. It really felt good for the soul. So, we need to do that shit more. But, so congratulations to, Eli. He's out of high school. So good for him. Whatever he's going to do next, he's going to do well at, because he's a good kid. And then the other album that came out 25 years ago, it's actually on July 4th, was the Foo Fighters. The first Foo Fighters album came out 25 years ago. So that is what I'd like to talk about today. Obviously nothing but thumbs up or whatever to the 311 album. But as I covered in the one show when I talked about Transistor, actually at this time I really wasn't much of a 311 fan. So, but I was a Foo Fighters fan right away because of the Nirvana connection. It just made sense. So that's what I want to talk about today. The first Foo Fighters album came out on July 4th, 1995. I don't know for sure if I had this right away. I don't know if I don't think I had bought the album right away, but I know it was in short order. But I remember having this album. I remember I bought this album in a Foo Fighter t-shirt the same day. I wish I still had that t-shirt. That was a neat t-shirt. I don't remember exactly. Some guy yelling or something like that. I don't know. Alien or something. I don't know. Foo Fighters, Alien, yada, yada, yada. But this one's famously for Dave Grohl recorded the whole thing himself. This wasn't meant to be an album. He just had a bunch of songs that he had written over the past, like at this time it was recorded in October of 94, like over a week. So it was at a studio down the street from his house called Robert Lang Studios in Seattle. And he booked a week just because he had to do something, because from the time that Kurt had passed away, he really didn't do a whole lot. He was doing traveling, probably just kind of not taking care of himself, definitely not being creative. So he needed to do something. So he had all these songs The majority of these songs were written over the time since about 1990. Through the Nirvana years, he would write songs. So not a ton of songs, but he wrote some of these songs. I think there was, what was it? I think 9 or 11 of the songs were already written by the time he got to go to the studio here. So he took a week. He recorded the whole thing by himself. It wasn't supposed to be an album. It was just him kind of cleansing himself, getting things out, being creative. And he made like 100 copies for his buddies. And just handed them out, whoever wanted one or whatever, whoever he saw, he just gave one to. And then the plan, I guess, was to press like 100 vinyls. And he called it the Foo Fighters just because he didn't want anybody to know that it was the dude from Nirvana, the drummer from Nirvana playing guitar and singing. What the fuck is that? But he wanted to try to separate the two things. He didn't want the Foo Fighters necessarily to become popular because he was in Nirvana. He wanted it to become popular on the merit that the songs were good. And he just wanted to be as separate from that as possible to hide his identity. He put the tapes out, just gave them to people, and some record labels started getting, got wind of the tapes, wind of the songs, whatever, and he decided to sign with Capitol, but he had to put a band together now. He had to put a band together. This was real now. So he got Nate Mendel and oh damn it, Goldsmith. What's his first name? The drummer. Jeez, I'm losing it. I don't know if I can find it. Whatever, it might not be on the page that I have pulled up, but he and then he got Pat Smear, who was in the Germs and then was a touring member of Nirvana for their last tour. He got him to play guitar and do background vocals. William Goldsmith. There it is. Jeez. Shout out. I guess we're doing a big shout out to Foo Fighters here. So yeah, so he wasn't aiming to make a band, signed a record label or signed a record contract. Then I was like, oh shit, I got to get a band. So Sunny Day Real Estate was just breaking up. So Nate and William were the bass and drums in that band respectively. So they were on their last tour when Dave met them, and they had broken up, I guess, in the midst of the tour, but wanted to, finish the tour. And then they broke up, and then Pat wasn't really doing much. I'm sure he was also rocked from Kurt's passing, but he was friends with Courtney Love. So that's kind of where that connection happened. An interesting thing going on there. July 4th, Dave recorded it himself. They released This Is a Call as the first single. June 19th, 1995. So obviously it was before, or, just a little bit before the record was released. But they had been doing tours, or they had been doing a tour with Mike Watt, where the Foo Fighters and then Eddie Vedder had a side project called Hovercraft that they would open for Mike Watt, and then in turn, Dave and Eddie and then a couple other guys were in Mike Watt's band. So they were both playing, Dave was doing double time for that whole tour, and so was Eddie. And then I'm sure, they had other guys in and out. So a lot of them were all doing double time, but it was kind of a sweet deal. They just did like a big club tour before the album even came out. There was no singles out yet when they started that tour. So I mean, it was grassroots to the core. So I guess is what that's what you do. So you tour and you build your name, and that's what they did for sure. Yeah, This Is a Call was the first one. Then shortly after the album came out, well, a couple months, I'll Stick Around was the second single. So those are, I know I heard This Is a Call right away. I know I heard that on the radio right away for sure. You read in the magazines, the internet wasn't really a thing, at least not in my world. Not too much anyways. I mean, it was. I shouldn't say it wasn't a thing, but I didn't own a computer at the time, and that's when it came out. I didn't have a computer yet. Been a couple of years probably before I had a computer yet. I think the internet was at school, but it was at school. So, but you read the magazines and everything, and Dave Grohl from Nirvana's got this new band. So me being a Nirvana fan, I had to support. I felt I had to support Dave Grohl for sure. So, and I know Chris Novoselic had a band there for a little bit. Sweet 75 actually. I don't know if I ever heard anything from that. I probably did at some point, but it's been quite a long time. So back to this. I'm going off on rants, or tangents or whatever. But Dave recorded this all himself. There was one song that he had an outside performer on. I will get to that when I run it down. They say each song took about 45 minutes to record. He was just kind of running around and do the drum tracks in one room, and then run and do guitars, and then he'd do the bass, and then maybe another guitar track, and then he'd do vocals. It was just this cycle of just running through. He has said too that, it wasn't meant to be an album. So there was a lot of lyrics that weren't finished. They would just write them and then sing them. And a lot of them didn't make sense, which is true. You can kind of tell if you can pick up what he's talking about. There's a lot of them that don't make sense. And those are probably the ones. And when I run it down, there's a lot of songs where I say Dave sounds comfortable on the vocal or doesn't sound comfortable on the vocal. And that's probably that, That's probably, you could tell the ones that he had written and probably was pretty good with, and then the ones that he didn't have that, they don't feel or sound as confident, and that's, that happens. I got that written down in my notes here. Yeah, I know 2 weeks in a row I actually made notes. It's strange. But I suppose you got to do it because I'm a dope. So, all right, let's get into the album here. I actually hadn't, excuse me, I hadn't listened to this full album in quite a long time. I know I had it. I bought it early, whenever it came out, somewhere around there. I don't know exactly when, but I had it. I don't know what happened to it. It could have been someone could have stole it. It could have just been scratched to shit and not played anymore. I probably lost it. I don't know, but either way, I didn't have it, so I went and I bought it. And it was good to have because I always did like the album. And what's really strange is I bought it last night and then I listened to it this morning. So there's a bunch of these songs that I have heard All like the popular ones like This Is a Call, I'll Stick Around, those kind of things that I have heard, all the time. They play them live, they got music videos for them. I mean, you can find any of them, but like, those are ones you think about when you think of this album. The ones that were singles and stuff, you think. So I fired this thing up and I just started playing it, one through, I don't remember how many songs are on here. Decent amount of songs, 12 songs. I just fired it up and went, front to back here. And, This Is a Call is the first one, I'll Stick Around, Big Me, Alone and Easy Target. I know all those. And then it got into a bunch of these where I didn't remember. It's been seriously a really long time since I listened to this album. So I got into like the, through the middle section of the album, I didn't remember any of these songs. So it was like the first time hearing them again, which is really cool. First time hearing songs of a band that I've liked for 25 years. But in one of the, I know I talked about it when my buddy RJ was on. Foo Fighters is like one of those albums where it's like, I like them a lot. I always have been a fan, but I don't own all the albums. I hadn't had this in how long? I don't know. I don't remember the last time I listened to it. So it was really neat. It was really neat to like revisit this. And then I took notes as I was listening to it. So it's a pretty neat thing. I didn't take extensive notes for each, but took a decent amount. So, all right. The first song on the album is This Is a Call. It starts out, it sounds like the guitar is plugging in and then it like breaks right into the song. The vocals and the guitar start right away. The first thing I have on this song, the first note is riffs, because these riffs are just awesome. They're just a ton of, it wasn't necessarily, I mean, it was a pretty well crafted song, but the riffs are just killer. There's a neat little arpeggiated guitar part under the chords of the chorus, which is instead of doing like a single note lead. That's, that was early. That seemed to kind of be early Foo Fighters, early Dave Grohl writing songs kind of thing. Is doing an arpeggiated part under the guitar chords, chorus, whatever. Obviously, we know who did the drums because he did all the work on this, but great drum performance. Like really, even if it wasn't Dave Grohl playing the drums, it was a great drum performance. Just the fills are just super tight and killer. Just awesome performance. The fills are really fucking fantastic on this song for sure. And this is one of those songs that Dave feels comfortable. It seems Dave feels comfortable singing on this. So this is probably one of those songs that he's had for a period of time before he recorded this. And then the outro's neat. It's got a different feel to it, but it is a neat outro. Go ahead and listen to it. That coincidentally was also the first single that they released, as I said before. The second single that they released, I'll Stick Around. I said that before as well. Great intro. The drum intro with the and the snare roll there, and then Dave Grohl doing the quarter note bass drums underneath the fill. That's signature Dave Grohl. There's strange enough, there's not a lot of people that did that before him, but that people did that a lot after him. So that's kind of a signature Dave Grohl thing. The verse bass line is really neat. It's kind of a different groove, and then the guitars over it. They're not like power chords; they're like inversions, and kind of a weird setup. It's kind of a strange feel, but yet it's a 4/4 feel. It's a neat thing how he did the relationship between the bass drums and then guitar. Awesome pre-chorus fills from the drums. The chorus is fantastic. The chorus is great. The one Oh, and then this song actually through the recording, this was the one that took this was the only song that took more than one take. See, he had to just hammer them out 12 songs in like 6 days. And that include mixing and mastering and all that stuff. So I mean, that's a tall fucking order, especially with one dude playing all of them. So to only have like one song to take fully more than one take is it's pretty impressive. And that just tells you how great of a musician Dave Grohl already was at that point in his life, and he was like 24 or 25 years old, The only thing that I caught listening to this is I think maybe this song should have been the first song on the record. Just with how the drums start, like you'd just be quiet and all of a sudden, I thought it would be really neat. So that's the only thing I have. That's not even negative. That's just an opinion. And I don't know if I'm right. It just kind of popped into my head, so that's what I'm here for. Big Me is next. This is the one that kind of got them like bigger exposure. And I think it was mostly due to the video. They did the Mentos knockoffs or whatever. They're making fun of the Mentos commercials. So it was a very entertaining video. And I know they made videos for I'll Stick Around, and I'll Stick Around and all that stuff. But this was like a funny, you saw the funny side of all these guys. So this was the one that kind of got them going. This was like the hit or whatever. All clean guitar. Actually, I believe it's the only song on the record that doesn't have any distortion on it at all. Super simple chorus. Catchy. It's a. I know Davis said that this is like a love song. It's like a pop song. It's written as a pop song. Dave was a big Beatles fan. So I'm not saying this is Beatle-esque, but it is a pop rock song. Simple melodies, simple choruses that are done right. One thing, he seems very comfortable. So this may be a song that he's had for a while, or it just came together. Which is nothing wrong with that. That's the best part, right? And I also do have written down that you can tell. Jeez, I'm just letting them fly. You can tell right away that this is Dave drumming. That this is a Dave Grohl drum song for sure. You can tell all the different fills that are in it, as well as like the bass drum patterns and how the bass drum reacts with the snare drum. Yeah, this is Dave Grohl all the way in it. You listen, oh yeah, Dave Grohl for sure. That was actually the fourth single, Big Me. The fifth single was Alone and Easy Target. I know this didn't really get any heat behind it, but this is actually one of my favorite songs on the whole record. This is one of my favorite Foo Fighters songs. I love the riff. The riff is so damn cool, and it hits you right away. It just jumps right out in front of you, right when the riff starts the song. So it's one of those ones that just punch you in the face. And it's super heavy, not chug heavy, but like there's a lot of fuzz on the guitar through the choruses and stuff. It's just like a heavy, thick tone. A little, it's like very mid rangey, and how the riff is, it kind of works with its like honkiness a little bit. So, but it's super heavy. It's got great chorus. I know they put some fuzz, fuzz effect on the guitars for the chorus, just in the chorus, just kind of makes it giant and thicken up. Great performance all the way around. Again, I know Dave did did all of them, but this really is one of those great performances. So even if it wasn't just him, it would be a great band performance. Like great band performance, period. The guitar work is great. The bass, everything's great. Fucking awesome performance. And then there's a about 3 minutes into the song going, I think it's like from like a bridge to the last chorus. There's this giant fucking fill, big old drum swell on the snare and the floor, and then this big giant fucking fill on there. So cool. I'm actually gonna probably see if I can put it in the post, but just an awesome fill for sure. I've heard this song more than a lot of these songs, I guess, over the years, but like you don't always hear every or all the song or whatever. So like I remembered this fill and then kind of forgot about this fill, and then I listened to the fill this morning. And I was like, oh, it's so good. Yeah, just a fucking great fill. So those songs I remembered. I've heard all those first 4 songs I remembered. And I liked them all. Alone and Easy Target is one of my favorite songs, like I just said. But then this comes into like the next few songs here that I honestly forgot about. Like Good Grief, that's the next song. I don't remember it. It was literally like the first time I was hearing it was like an hour ago whenever I listened to it. And I had to pay attention. I was like, I don't remember this song at all. It's so strange. You figure like once you hear something, you remember it. No recollection of it. This one has a lot of fuzz guitar on it. This one kind of seems like he just kind of wrote this one quickly for the vocal part of it, because the music is really enjoyable. And I know the chorus was decent. I know that it was just like a repeated line, but it felt like he was comfortable doing that. But the verses in this, they seemed kind of detached. The performance wasn't great. Kind of seemed like he was kind of fumbling through it a bit. So this is probably one of those where he just kind of like, oh, I got to write words, write words, sing them. This is probably what it is. One thing that was really cool is like I said, I like the music in the song a lot. The lead line is almost like a country line, not in the bendy, twangy kind of feel, but just how, like, not the bendy, twangy kind of sound, but like the feel kind of reminded me of a country lead right away. So pretty neat. I like that one. That one's rad. Singing ain't great, but the music is good. Floaty is the next song. Pretty neat song too, as far as the music. I don't think Dave was super comfortable on the vocals with this, but it wasn't as disjointed as Good Grief. So they put a phaser on his vocals on here. And I know I've read that like he was not super confident, in singing these. And he was a drummer, or is a drummer. He was a drummer in the biggest band in the world. And he did background vocals, but he wasn't the vocalist. And when you're sitting behind the kit and then you have to get out in front, it is even a different thing. Even if you're just, you're recording these songs, it's your confidence just is not there. So he kind of did play around with some things to make his vocals better. Like I read that he like quadruple tracked vocals and stuff like that on here. So there's phaser on the vocals here. It's not heavy phase, but it is there. You could hear it right away. Cool, kind of like back between like halftime feel and then like double time feel. So it's like upbeat parts, and then there's parts where it's half timed. It's pretty neat. There's a bridge in it. It's kind of like a cool offbeat, not offbeat, but like just kind of off kilter a little bit, which is a Dave Grohl kind of thing here. Yeah, kind of some neat stuff in here. The vocals are they're decent, but they put that phaser on there. So to kind of hide his things here a little bit, but neat stuff. And then the next song is called Weenie Beanie. Fantastic name. Maybe that's what we should name the next band. Weenie Beanie. I've heard this riff a bunch. I think they used it in Back and Forth, that Foo Fighters documentary that came out a number of years ago at this point. But it's a really neat riff, really neat intro. The verses, the intro is the verse. There's part of this song, like the pre-chorus, and then it's like a bridge part that kind of reminds me of early Nirvana. Not anything that would be famous. It would be like something kind of buried in an album. There's a certain song, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it's a like something off of Bleach. Like the riff reminds me of something off that would have come off of Bleach. So neat part, super fuzzy fucking guitars on here, and then tons of screaming. This is like a little bit of like what there seems to always be a song like this on Foo Fighters records. Like White Limo on Wasting Light, same kind of idea, screaming, distorted ass vocals, intense, kind of stuff. So this kind of was like, oh, that's that song, because I recognized it. I just didn't like realize that that's what it was. So it was pretty neat. I liked it a lot. Oh George was the next one. This one I wrote down right away. It has a big me kind of feel to it, only it's got distortion on it. Not heavy ass distortion, but it's got overdrive on it for sure. So good chorus harmonies. There's actually an extended guitar solo in it, like a real long guitar solo, which is pretty cool. And it seemed, I didn't read anything that Dave didn't do the solo. So, he's singing for the first time and then ripping guitar solos. So it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat for sure. So definitely it's not a great song, but it is an enjoyable song, and it's a good song for sure. On the same lines as Big Me. Then the next song is For All the Cows. That was actually the third single on the album. This one's got kind of like a bluesy, loungy kind of feel to it. It's definitely different than just about anything they really probably have ever done. Yeah, it's very strange, but it does do like the quiet, quiet, loud, quiet kind of thing. That was definitely I'm a fan of, but was a thing definitely during that time, and then you're from Nirvana and stuff like that through now. So definitely does that. This song has a great performance on each instrument. Again, I know Dave did this whole thing, but if it was a band and it wasn't just him, either way, it was a great performance. All the performances are super tight. The drum fills are great. There's she's like bluesy lead parts in the middle of the singing, they're thrown in there and stuff that are all really cool. It's got like a swing feel in the chorus, which is it's not it's different, but in the best way possible. It's really cool. I really enjoy it a lot. So yeah, this is one of those songs that you remember just from listening to it. And this was the third single on the album. Dave feels really comfortable. I also got written down that this kind of performance really is reminiscent. Well, reminiscent isn't the right word. It's like a precursor to how a lot of his vocal performances turn out to be. Very quiet, and then it's kind of like super, like more aggressive, kind of screamy in the choruses, but just has like this is an early part of what his genius, I guess, would turn into be. This would be more. This song is more of what his vocal style turns out to be. A lot of the other ones are a little iffy at times. This one is confident and definitely what his performance style ended up being. The next song on here is Ecstatic. This is another one of those songs I don't really remember. It's got an interesting intro, and then the chord progression for the verses is interesting. It's like I didn't count it out, but I'm going to say it's like a 7 or like 9 chord movement. It's very intricate just in how it's moving, but then it kind of seems difficult to sing to. And this definitely might have been a problem. Is all the vocals are whispered. And then there's it's still whispered in the chorus, but there's sung harmonies behind it. So this one he might have been getting comfortable with, but not there yet, and then just recorded it. Probably another. If you would have worked on it some more, it probably would have been better. But the music is very interesting, and this is actually the only song that I could find that had an outside performance. Greg Dully from the Afghan Wigs played guitar on this song. I'm not sure what his parts were. I don't know if I couldn't find anything that this is what he played here. This is what Dave played here. But it's an interesting song for sure. And that's like with a lot of these ones that maybe his vocals aren't quite there yet, is, they were a bit of an afterthought, because you needed to put vocals on there. But if you would have took some more time on these vocals, if he was able to, these songs would have been really good, and this album would have been very, very, very strong. Because the music on this album is very, very good. Just some of the vocals aren't great. Watershed's the next one. I got Sweet Freaking Riff. I got Sweet Freaking Riff put down on here. So, and then this is Screaming Dave. This seems like this might be a song that he either really caught fire with, or he had written. I didn't look into which songs he had written. I know there's a list of it somewhere, but that's not really That's not really that important to me. You can kind of guess which ones. So this one seems as though he might have had this written for a while or seemed very comfortable with it, or he just became comfortable with it very quickly. But yeah, tons of screaming on it. It's a super awesome song. It's pretty heavy. It's got some weird time stuff, which Dave seems to always like to do. Like Times Like These or whatever has kind of that odd time feel to it. So this is no exception. This is another one of the songs that get that weird thing going on here. So neat song. Really like the song. Exhausted is the last song on the album. And again, this is another one of the songs I didn't really remember. And caught me right away as the guitar is super fuzzy, but yet underneath it is clean guitar. And it's not like they're panning, like hard panning fuzz on the left and clean guitar on the right. They're both together. So it's an interesting thing, and it's an interesting way it gets delivered to your ears. Like it kind of comes through as this white noise kind of thing, fuzz. You kind of know what it sounds like, and then how it's mixed with the clean guitar kind of makes it feel and sound like it's white noise. Another thing that I wrote down here is really aggressive drums without having really aggressive guitars. That changes at a certain point, but the drums never don't change. It's super aggressive. That there's an open hi-hat with more or less clean guitar, and then in the chorus, it goes to the like one of the crash cymbals. It's super loud, big boombastic drums, very, very, very aggressive, and kind of subdued guitars. Then about 2 minutes in, the fuzz goes away for a few bars, and they change to this riff, and then that's straight like overdrive distortion. The drums stay the same, and that goes for a couple bars, and then back in with the fuzz. But what's really neat is after that part that they do where the fuzz goes away, there's a bunch of feedback, and then it goes back into the verse with the fuzz. It's just a break with the feedback, drums stop, and then it comes back in with the aggressive, guitar and all that stuff. Drums, I mean. Then with about 2 minutes left, there's like a feedback break, this big long break. One of these where you can tell it's like, okay, this is like you need kind of some epicness on the last song of the album here. So there's a big feedback break. And then it comes back with the main riff. Kind of repeated. There's no more vocals. There hasn't been vocals here for a while. And they just play out. And then it fades out. Something that doesn't happen too much anymore. The fade out is kind of a lost art. But definitely during this time, it was still alive and well. It's a really neat song. Like I was taking notes to it as I was listening to it, because again, I haven't heard this song in I don't know how long. I didn't even remember it. But it turns out to be a really cool song. I really like it. I wrote pretty tremendous song. So it is a really neat song. A great performance. Dave feels comfortable here. So that was the last song, and that's the first bit of Dave Grohl post Nirvana in a band that he's fronting, playing guitar in. So, we know what, the color and the shape took them to another level. They toured the shit out of this record. Lost band members, but they're a young band, and that happens to every band, especially when you're young. They're all still young here too. They're 25 years old or something like that. So like any band that you have, even post that, but definitely pre that age in your life, you're going to go through members before you even, if you do anything significant, you're probably going to go through a bunch of members before you do it. So this is Dave Grohl's band, and then he's, they're dropping members and stuff like that and picking up new ones. And, obviously it all worked out, but like, we know what happens when the color and the shape comes out. They're at this level, and then the next album is the next level, and Everlong takes them to a higher level, and they've been a Hall of Fame band forever, but like forever is different. That's not you know what I mean? They've been a Hall of Fame band for a long time, but now 25 years later, they're definitely a Hall of Fame band. So Dave will definitely be a 2-time member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame whenever that happens for the Foo Fighters. And right now they're kind of one of the only ones in like the mainstream-ish that are able to carry the rock torch, really. They're not a metal band. They're just like a rockin' band that's very creative and, has obviously a great front man, but they're a great band, period. The band is so tight, and they've pretty much been the same band now for about 20 years. Since Chris Shiflett kind of came into the band, and then Pat Smear came back, and so they got like 3 guitars now. But yeah, it's interesting to see where it started. It wasn't supposed to be a band. I know I did hear him. He was like, well, if I knew it was going to be a band, I'd name it something else than the fucking Foo Fighters. It's a neat band, from where they came from to what they are now. It's neat. It's really neat to see the progression and see how more comfortable Dave became being a front man and having to wade through all the early stuff of, you saw we've seen all those videos of whatever song it is a song about Kurt, blah, blah. So he had to answer all these questions about Kurt. Obviously it's like, they were touring like within, probably, well, not within, but, probably about a year after Kurt's passing or something like that. And, they're doing all the press because they're a new band. So you got to do all the press and you got to do all the shit. You got to fucking work. And he's got to answer all these songs about Kurt. So how fucked up. But from then till now. So the Foo Fighters are they're a great band. I wouldn't say every single song of theirs I'm a fan of, but I like most of them, so that's pretty damn good. You're not going to like every fucking song, just the way it is. It's very difficult to have some band that somebody likes every single song that you have put out. Maybe there's probably people who do, but I'm not one of those people with Foo Fighters, but that doesn't mean that I don't love the Foo Fighters, and I think Dave Grohl is like he's one of my favorite musicians. He seems like a cool fucking dude, and I'd probably fangirl out if I met him. I try not to, but I probably would. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap it up here, and I appreciate everybody who's listened today and has listened to previous episodes. This is episode 15 today, I believe. Yeah, that sounds right. If it's not, well, I lied, but I definitely appreciate it. So everybody have a great day. Everybody keep on keeping on. This has been Can I Get More Podcasts on my monitor. I am Johnny Ruckus. Thank you very much, everybody.